Is it illegal for someone with HIV to have sex with someone and not disclose their status? We answer that question and a lot more on this episode of Queerly Us. He's a queer health sexual educator, and his name is Aaron Clarke. Aaron, welcome to Queerly Us.
True facts about me. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited
Only the truth here. Oh, no, truth. That
excited
reminds
to
me
be
of
here.
Donald Trump. Yes, good. I'm so excited to have you here. People that know me or that know you, they might know that we've already worked together. We did that YouTube video. So this is not the first time we're sitting down together, but I felt like we had such a good rapport that I wanted to bring you on the show because I've got a lot to discuss with you today.
Got a good rapport, and we happen to love talking about HIV and sex
We love
and
it.
sexual health. We just love it. Can't get enough.
I just love all that stuff. Well, it's so important. There's so much information to cover and so much to get out there. So, let's start at the beginning. So, how did you start your journey as a queer sexual health educator?
So in the beginning, I was diagnosed with HIV about 9 years ago.
Okay.
And around that time, I started seeing a therapist. I was connected to a therapist, and I stayed in touch with that therapist for a while. And when the pandemic hit, I lost my job in restaurants, and so the therapist that I was working with was actually affiliated with ACT, the AIDS Committee of Toronto, and they suggested that I apply there, and here I am. I got the job, by the way.
You got congratulations.
Thank you.
I love that story for you because just knowing what I know of you, you're just so perfectly suited for this position. And like you have a passion for it, and you're personally, I mean, you can speak to it, and it just feels like the perfect, if it wasn't for COVID, maybe you wouldn't have found this path? Question mark?
It's true. I might not have. I might still be in restaurants. And I'm grateful for this kind of work for two reasons. I mean, like you said, I am super passionate about it, and I think that it's important work. It's we should be having these kind of conversations, and we should be educating people about this stuff because there isn't enough education about this stuff, unfortunately.
No, that's right. And you
then I'm
hear
also
about south of the border, for example, don't say gay,
yeah.
and in schools, I don't even know what they're teaching anymore. I just remember when I was a kid, and that was a while ago, it was very basic. There was nothing like that. So
And it
it's
was
important to
only, I
have
mean,
people like you.
for me in school, the sexual health stuff was only ever heterosexual stuff.
Right.
There was never anything so that didn't really apply to me. I didn't quite know it at the time that it didn't apply to me, but it didn't. So because I ended up being gay.
Whoa, are you
Yeah,
gay?
I'm coming out on this episode of your podcast. That's
Guys,
right.
you heard it here first. Aaron is gay. I knew it. I could have put money on it. Anyway. No, listen, there's a lot of, I mean, you're younger than me, so imagine in my day. And, but I have friends that are in the education system, and actually I've been to the schools, and I see in the libraries now, they have gay books, and they have, coming out books, and being trans and all of this stuff. So we have come a long way. In terms of that, but when it comes to sex, people really close up. It's one thing to say, oh, my son is gay, or my daughter is a lesbian, and or trans, and all of these different labels. But then when you want to have sexual education around that, it's people get really heterosexual and homosexual. I mean, it's like everyone kind of parents back off and stuff. So having you is important, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think that those, I mean, I really feel like youths, kids, and people who are in their or in their early 20s that are especially cool about this kind of thing. They grew up with trans people in the media, and they grew up with queer people being famous and doing things that they can actually see on TV or in podcasts or on YouTube videos. So it's nice that I think that a lot of times people are like, kids can't handle that kind of thing. It's just too confusing for them. But I think that kids are actually the most able to understand and comprehend that kind of thing.
Totally
so
agree.
it really seems backwards to me that we try to keep it from them, that we try to keep that kind of thing quiet.
No, you're right. I agree 100%. It's backwards. It's actually the adults that can't handle it
Oh,
because
100%.
you as you grow, you solidify your views and it gets harder and harder to learn and change and stuff. So kids,
Right.
that's when they got it. You know.
They're
But
flexible. They,
they're
yeah.
flexible, yeah, they absorb it. Well, you brought it up, so I'm gonna skip down here because I wrote a note about people who are HIV positive in the public eye. And when I was a kid, there were not even any gay people that were out. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, and I thought, well, I can't be an actor because I'm gay, and I'm not going to hide it. That wasn't on the menu for me.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, I guess I can't be an actor. Like I didn't even, there wasn't even really any out actors. But now we've got people like Jack McEnroth. Do you remember him from Project Runway? He came out on Project Runway as HIV positive. He
Oh
was
yeah, yeah.
season 4. This is a while ago, but just as
Right.
an example, or Angina or Trinity K.
Angina.
Bonet,
Yep.
right? Or Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye, Billy
Yes. Yep.
Porter,
Yep. Yep.
Charlie Sheen, Danny Pintaro, the kid from Who's the Boss. Like these are all noble entities. These are known name celebrities that are coming out of the club, not as gay, but as HIV. So, I mean, how important is representation, do you think?
I mean, I think it's important for people living with HIV, and I think it's important for people who aren't living with HIV to see that kind of representation. I think it's important for everybody to see that people living with HIV are doing great. Like they're thriving. They're celebrities, they're actors, they're ahead in their professions,
Hmm.
and their illness didn't bring them down. In fact, it might have helped them get to where they are in some cases.
100%. It's like um, you hear or you see sometimes those kids, those sick kids, and they've got cancer and everything. And when they open their mouth, they're so prophetic. And the things that they say, I mean, they've had to mature quickly, but their perspective on life also is so altered, but for the better. I mean, they just know what's
Yeah,
important. And I
yeah,
think that that happens a lot with people with HIV too. It's sort of like a reckoning. You're kind of like,
kind
you
of,
come
yeah.
face to face with, that, and you come out the other side, you have a different perspective.
You come face to face with what is seen in the gay community as the biggest, baddest STI that you can get, right? It's like
Yeah.
this is the number one thing that we talk about protecting yourselves from, and you're right. I never really thought of it as sort of like being face to face with, I don't know, your mortality, if we want to get into like if we want to get
Hmm.
like existential with it.
Yeah.
But there definitely was that like realization for me where I was like, wow, my health is fragile, and now I actually really have to work at keeping myself healthy, and so I don't take my health for granted anymore.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah,
I when I was in my 20s, I thought I was invincible, as you do,
as most 20-year-olds do. Yeah.
as you do. And then I realized I wasn't. And I got into such a dark place with it. I just wanted to push the reset button.
Yeah.
I felt like I was playing a video game and I lost. Like
Right.
I was out of lives and I lost the video game and I needed to restart the game. But the problem is, like, there is no restart button. It's just you can't go back. You got to keep going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, which can be very frustrating because you're right. It's like yeah, you're like, can I just take this one, can I just get one do over?
Just
Like really,
one.
like come
Just
on,
one. Uh-huh.
this can't be the case.
Uh-huh.
And there is a lot of like coming to terms with it and accepting it, and you know but it's nice that both of us have realized that we can take that and make it work for us. We can
Hmm.
take it and build something on top of it. I both of us sort of went into a sexual health or a sexual discussion kind of thing,
Yeah.
just making the conversation more open.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if I would have gotten to this kind of place without an HIV diagnosis. I'm not sure
Hmm.
about or how you feel about that. Do you think that you'd be doing this kind of thing if not?
I would be talking about sex, but probably not HIV. But I
Right.
think talking about one without the other, I mean, it's not the complete picture, because there's the stigma what I like most is just breaking down the stigma and the preconceived notions about things. And so there's so
Yeah.
much around HIV that needs to be taken down. So yeah, I think it's super important. Yeah.
I'm it's weird to sort of feel grateful for having HIV, and I don't know that I necessarily feel that, but I am grateful for
Hmm.
what having HIV has been able to bring to me. You know,
Hmm.
I don't think that I wouldn't be this passionate about this kind of work. I don't know that I would be as like understanding and compassionate a person if I didn't have a chronic illness, and I didn't work in a sexual health space where I see marginalized people getting mistreated by the healthcare system.
Hmm.
Um, so I really just think it's made me like a more well-rounded person, less shitty than I used to be when I was younger.
Yeah. And for me, I don't know for you if it's the same, but for me it's this realization that life isn't fair. I mean, good things don't happen to good people, bad things don't happen to bad people. They goes both ways. I mean,
Yeah,
for instance, and just in the sense that like I mean, not that I know bad people, but I know people that are just not nice. They're not nice, but they're healthy. They're nothing happened to them, and they're fine.
true.
It's the randomness and the sort of, but coming to terms with that has made me so much happier in my life because it's kind of like, well, it's like seeing the truth because otherwise you always feel like, oh, that's not fair. Why did that happen to me? And you know what I mean? But when you come to terms with, well, that's not what it's about.
It's
It's not about
life,
fairness. you
right?
know, it's
Right. No,
just, did that make sense? I don't,
I think it did. Yeah, no, I
did
think
it? Okay.
it's, not seeing your diagnosis as like a cruel twist of fate. It's just like it's just life. It's something that happens to
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
and it unfortunately happened to us.
Yep.
But how lucky are we that we are able to, take care of it, and not only that, but like I
Hmm.
said, turn it into something that's doing good for the world. I
Hmm.
I think, I don't know. That's kind of,
The
maybe that's a little
world.
too,
Yes. The world is
but doing
listening.
we're doing something positive with it.
No,
Haha,
we are
positive.
for sure. Listen, if you're listening to this right now and you are HIV and you're positive and you're struggling with it, just be gentle with yourself. Like give yourself time. It took me a long time to really fully, be okay with my diagnosis. So,
Hmm.
um, give yourself that time.
And I
Um,
also think that it's really like, community couldn't be more important when it comes to stuff like that.
mm,
When you're feeling like, when I was diagnosed, I felt like a plethora of awful things. I felt stupid. I felt dirty. I felt,
mhm,
all these things that you sort of beat yourself up. But you're not. I mean, maybe you are a little dirty, and that's okay. But
mhm.
like, don't feel shame for it. I mean, it's just something that
Why is
happened to
dirty a
you,
bad
and
word?
right, exactly, right.
Yeah.
um yeah, being gentle with yourself for sure. Give yourself some patience and reach out to people if you're able to. There are organizations, across Ontario that help people who are newly diagnosed, or even who have been diagnosed for a long time. Just if you want somebody to talk to, if you need a support group, if you need to relate to somebody else that's going through the same thing or that went through the same thing, just to tell you that it's going to be okay. Those supports exist. You just have to find them.
Mhm. It took me a long time, even with my family, even with my friends. Like when I returned from LA, I was HIV. I was living in LA for a bunch of years, and when I returned, I was HIV positive. My friends were like, "Oh, are you still negative?" And I said, "Yes," because I just, well, I wasn't ready. Obviously, I wasn't ready. And so it's like this coming out of the closet again.
Yeah.
How many times do I need to come out of the closet, But, I'm gay. Oh, I'm HIV positive. So it took me a long time. And then I started my YouTube channel, and it's very important for me to be as authentic and vulnerable as I can be on my channel. But a big part of that is disclosing actually my status, and that took like 2 years before I even said it. And actually the first time was with you, and it was just in passing in a story. It wasn't even like a big statement, which is kind of what
Right,
I
yeah.
wanted, to just blend it in, and it didn't even make a wrinkle. Nobody cares. But for
Mm,
me it was a big deal to
for sure.
you know.
I don't, you say that nobody cares, but I bet you there are people that watched it and felt a sort of relief seeing that representation, or
Mm,
again, knowing that maybe they're a fan of yours and they've been following you for a while, and to know that you are in the same club as them, that I
yeah.
bet you that did make some people feel good. So I don't think you should sell yourself short.
Thank you. I think I meant more like nobody cared in the sense that there wasn't
Oh, there
a
wasn't like
big
backlash.
exodus. Yeah, there wasn't an
Okay,
exodus
sure,
from my
sure.
channel, and suddenly I was like there was one person watching, you know, or something.
Right,
It
right.
it didn't make a difference. I guess that's a better way to say it. It didn't make a difference to my audience whether I was or wasn't.
Hmm.
Um, but then to your point, it probably did in a positive way for people
In a
that,
positive
you
way,
know,
yeah.
were able to relate.
How do you
Um,
feel about your status now?
Yeah, it's such a funny thing. Like, how do I feel about it? I
Yeah,
guess
like when you think I'm HIV positive, what kind of what does that bring up in you?
I think it's just a fact at this point. I think it will always be something that, you know, do I want to be? Well, no. Uh, if I could go
Life
back
would
and
be
change,
easier if not.
if yeah, life would be my life would be easier if I wasn't. If I had if you presented me with a choice right now, I would choose to be negative. Yes. If you said, would you like to go back and change that moment or moments? Yes, I probably would. So yes, I don't know if that's called regret or that's called, I don't know what that's called.
Mm,
But there is an acceptance, and there's a kind of a grace that has come with the years where it's like this is just part of me. There's no shame, there's no guilt at all. Um, and there never was in terms of like I'm wrong or I'm guilty. I did get hard on myself in the sense that I knew better but didn't do better.
right, right. Yeah.
That's where I really was hard on myself.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I've also let that go. So, but that was
Yeah.
the hardest. That was the hardest for you as well.
And well, I think that there's likely a difference between how, as you said earlier, there is a difference in age between us. I don't
Yeah.
think that it's a huge difference, and so I'm not trying to tell you that you're old, but you are a bit older than me, and so the attitude around HIV for your generation was likely different and
Yeah.
probably a lot scarier. You probably had a lot more fear thrown at you about that kind of thing
For sure.
than I did. I still had some, don't like, and there is still discrimination and there's still stigma. Of
Hmm.
course, there is today,
Hmm.
but my I think that our journeys were a bit different just because of progress.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. I have friends that are 10 years older than me, and they lost all their
Hmm.
friends. And then
Right,
I've got
right.
friends that are
Literally, yeah,
10. Yeah, they lost everyone. And then I have friends that are 10 years younger, and it was never about dying. It was just about living with, but
right,
also with the stigma and everything. But it wasn't a fear of death. It wasn't this looming death sentence. So I was like sandwiched in
right,
between these kind of two generations where it was like everybody was supposed to wear condoms all the time because the medication existed, and it helped alleviate, it helped to prolong, but it was still a very serious, situation. So
right.
this sort of do better, know better, didn't do better, you know, thing was whole all my story. Also, when I
Yeah,
was young, I remember getting tested and then being negative and being a little bit disappointed because that meant that I had to keep going with the fear of never knowing when is it going to happen, because it wasn't really like will it happen, it was more like when is it going to happen, and
yeah.
what is it going to mean for me. So it was almost like let's just get it out of the way,
Hmm.
and which I didn't do it on purpose, but I'm just saying that was my mentality.
No, I
It
know
was
what you
kind of,
mean. Hmm.
yeah, once I have it, then I don't have to think about it anymore. And I don't have to worry about that. So that was very much that, coupled with the fact that I knew I wanted to go into the adult industry.
Mm,
Um, and I thought if I'm positive, then that will give me an excuse, because that'll be like, well, what else can I do with my life? I'm just going to go do porn.
mm,
Um, which is like, that was my thought. But I tested negative and I still went to LA and became a porn star anyways, even though I was negative. So, um, but I almost wanted that as an excuse, to give me permission to go and do this thing called porn.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and for sure there was definitely that like I don't know for yeah, okay, relief maybe does work because you're right. You as a negative person before I was educated on HIV and before PrEP and before, all this stuff, I was super fearful of getting it, and every sexual encounter was an opportunity to catch it.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it's kind of there was that relief after getting it, after I accepted myself sexually again, that I don't have to worry about that anymore, and that's nice. That is a positive thing about being positive. I did not mean to make that. Um, I didn't mean to do that.
Well, it's like totally what you're saying, because it's like sex is so was so enjoyable and so fun and something that I wanted to do, and this was like ruining it all the time. Like
Mm,
I couldn't have any encounters with thinking about that afterwards and being like, was that the time, or you know?
hmm.
And it was just, yeah, so just to get it out of the way, sort of thing, and
Yep.
uh, the consequences be damned. But also I was very young and kind of, not as smart maybe, or not making good
Right.
choices, and also the you still think you're invincible. So
Yep.
um I feel good, so I guess I can't be sick, that kind of
Yeah.
situation. So I look good, so everything must be fine, you know.
Well, you still look good, and everything is going pretty
Is
well.
fine. So, Aaron, full disclosure, part of the reason I reached out to you was because I thought of you. I received a message from one of my viewers recently, and he was asking me a question. So he's recently HIV positive, and he's been struggling with that and coming to terms with his diagnosis. Now he's coming out the other side of it, and he's ready to sort of get out there and start dating, and starting to have sex. So his concern and his question was, what around disclosure? How does he approach that in situations? And I'll start this just by saying I know that, I guess it was 10 years ago or whatever, there was a huge um, legal, the legalities around disclosure were being discussed because, well, we didn't have PrEP and stuff like this. And I guess people were transmitting the virus without disclosing to their partner that they were HIV positive, and they were disclosing it, and people were getting upset, and then they were suing them. So there was all what is the law around this? So he was asking me in today in this day and age, what is the protocol? How do you go about disclosing? Do you need to disclose? You know?
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately the idea or the concept of criminality around HIV is complicated and cloudy and not super clear. But I can talk about it to whatever extent I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Well, listen, nobody. Let's preface this by saying this is not legal advice,
Right,
right?
absolutely not.
This is not legal advice. We're not telling anybody to do anything. This is a conversation that we're having around disclosure. Okay,
Yeah,
go
great.
ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just so I think that in I don't know if the exact year is right, but I think sometime around 2018, 2019, it was passed that if you are living with HIV and you have a suppressed viral load, that you can't be charged, you can't be criminalized for having sex with somebody essentially.
I'll help you out because I did Google it. So
Okay.
the wording that I found was, you're required to disclose when there is a realistic possibility of
Right.
transmission.
Hmm.
A realistic possibility of transmission. That's when you are required to disclose. Is what they said. So go on. Anyways.
Right, right. And then that's nuanced by basically meaning if you have a suppressed viral load, so if you are HIV positive and taking your medication, then a there isn't a risk of they usually charge people with aggravated assault when it comes to this sort of thing, and
Wow.
there isn't a risk that you're actively trying to harm somebody or pass on this disease to them.
I
So
I, I so God,
it is.
it's such a sticky topic because I'm thinking, okay, yes, you're undetectable, but who's to say you're undetectable in that moment that you're having sex with somebody? I'm just saying, like maybe your viral load spiked for some reason. I don't know, for some reason. It shouldn't.
Well, we
Could it?
I
You
we
know?
can let's if you're taking your medication according to your doctor's recommendations, that should not be a possibility. So let's
Mm,
if you are that's number one is if you're HIV positive and you want to have a suppressed viral load, you have to take your medication. You have to
please
make sure
take your
you keep on top of
medication.
it. Set a schedule, do whatever you got to do. Get one of those pill things from the dollar
Yep.
store.
Yep.
Um, so hopefully, yeah, hopefully no spikes are happening when you're taking your medication.
Yep.
But you're right. I mean, and it's the same for people who say that they're HIV negative. If you haven't gotten tested within the past 3 months, you don't know
You don't
100%
know.
that you're HIV negative,
Totally.
right? And I think that that's for me, that's something that sort of empowered me sexually as a pause person was that statistic of it's you're less likely to get HIV from me than you are from somebody who says that they're HIV negative and doesn't wear a
Right.
condom.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
there's less risk for me because I'm on top of it and I 100% know my status.
Yeah. If somebody tells you they're undetectable, that's a safe bet to, a safe horse to put your bet on because,
It demonstrates that they are on top of their sexual health, that they're taking
yeah,
care of themselves, that they're taking it seriously.
yeah. Um, yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. Well, no,
It's a lot.
it's a lot. And it's not just HIV. It's anything. It's herpes. It's gonorrhea. It's sometimes you don't know even you have it, and then or they don't know they have it, and they give it to you, and you know what I mean? Like
Often you don't know
sex.
you have it.
That's right. And so I mean, sex is a risk.
Yes,
Period.
I think that
Period.
that's something that anybody that's having sex needs to understand. Sex is inherently risky, and if you are having sex, then you have to accept that risk. And if
That's
you
right.
can't accept that risk, then you shouldn't be having sex.
Well, and so a huge thing for me, and I always felt this, even when I got my diagnosis and everything, I never blamed anyone else for
Oh, for sure.
my diagnosis. It's my sexual health. I'm the only one who's responsible for it. I can't make anybody else responsible for my sexual health. So even back before when it was like they were talking about criminalizing it and PrEP wasn't a thing as sort of a barrier to help you, but people were undetectable, but we didn't know what undetectable, like we knew it was good but we didn't know you couldn't pass it on, for example, so it was more of a
Sure.
gray area. But even in those days I thought, you know what, it's not, you take care of yourself. Do you know what I mean? If that is such a concern for you of like if you ask somebody, hey, are you HIV positive, and then they say no, in the grand scheme of things, they could be lying. They could
Could be
be.
lying,
They
or
they they could
they just
not
don't
know.
not know.
It's your responsibility. If that's such a concern for you, then slap on a condom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wanted to go back on what I said a little bit, just to say that sex is risky and you need to accept that risk, but there are also ways to decrease your risk.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Of
like you
course.
said, you're in charge of your own sexual health,
Yeah.
and it's up to you what sort of interventions you put into play when it comes to protecting yourself.
That's right. Yeah. And those choices that you
Hopefully,
make.
it is.
Yeah. And the choices you make are your choices and you made them and you have to live with those consequences. We do.
That's right.
So,
And not to say that everybody who gets HIV is at fault for getting it. I mean, some people are born with it. Some
of course.
people,
No, no, no.
it can happen in several different ways. So it's not always a mistake that somebody makes.
True.
But yeah, for those who are HIV negative and want to stay that way, then there are lots of things that you can do to protect yourself. And for
So,
those of you who are HIV positive, luckily, advancements in medicine mean that if you have access to proper healthcare, that we can live happy, normal, quote unquote, normal lives.
yeah. Well, that bleeds into you equals you. So why don't we talk about that? And we talked about it in the YouTube video, and we're going to keep talking about it because it's super important. And I think some people still don't understand or want to understand, or we still need to get that message out. So let's just discuss you equals you then.
U equals U. Undetectable equals untransmissible. And they have said it on Drag Race a few times. We talked about Angina
That's right.
earlier.
Yeah.
And Trinity K. Bonet talked about U equals U specifically. Um, yeah, and it basically means that if you are undetectable, which means you're taking your antiretroviral medication and your viral load is suppressed, that you cannot transmit the virus to somebody. You are
Hmm.
untransmissible. And that is a huge breakthrough for sexual health and for people living with HIV and for people not living with HIV, for those affected by it.
Sure. So let's say you're undetectable and you have unprotected sex with somebody who is HIV negative, not on PrEP. What does that look like?
Yeah, so first, I don't like the word protected sex or unprotected sex, because the person who is HIV positive in that instance, if they're undetectable, that means that they're taking their medication, and that is a layer of protection.
Mm.
So unprotected sex, meaning condomless sex, doesn't necessarily mean the same thing.
So what do we say now? We
Um,
say condomless?
I would say condomless.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, the specific act that's happening, because
Okay.
saying protection or unprotection or no
Well, and
protection
I'm showing my
is just doesn't
age,
cover it.
right? I'm
Well,
showing
and
I'm
this
showing my
is,
age. Yeah.
but you're also showing that you're open to things, because here we are talking about this stuff, right?
Hmm.
So,
Oh my God,
yay.
yeah.
Yeah, but so to go back to your question, if an undetectable person has sex with a negative person without a condom, and that negative person is not on PrEP,
Hmm.
can they get HIV? And the answer is U equals U, so no.
Okay.
Undetectable means they cannot pass it on, even if the person is not on PrEP.
Same situation, but the other person is on PrEP.
Is on PrEP, then that's just sort of another layer of protection. You have the undetectability and PrEP, then it's sort of like a band-aid on top of a band-aid, or I don't know, what's a better metaphor? Because HIV isn't a wound.
Yeah. An oozing pus wound.
But
Wait, no, that's not nice.
you know what I mean? It's like
I do. No, I
it's
do.
protection on top of protection.
Well, then,
It's
just for the sake of conversation, and I don't know if you have the answer or we know specifically. I mean, I guess, but just in broad terms. So if a HIV negative person is on PrEP and they have condomless sex with somebody who is HIV positive, not undetectable, PrEP is still a good guard, obviously. I mean, that's
it's
the
a
reason
great
for PrEP,
guard.
I guess. That's the reason for
Yeah,
PrEP, actually,
yeah.
right?
And it should be mentioned that there are other STIs that you are not protecting yourself from with PrEP. PrEP only protects you from HIV.
Of course.
But yes, if you are taking your PrEP regularly as instructed by your doctor, then yeah, you have that layer of protection. It's not 100%. We can't say anything in sexual health is 100%. There's always that 0.0000001%
Right.
chance.
Yeah.
But the risk in this case, we say that it's negligible.
Right. I mean, how far have we come so far?
So far. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was diagnosed, I still kind of accepted it as a death sentence about 9 years ago, and I'm sure
Mm.
that a lot of people feel that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, we've come so far in terms of like genotypes too. Like there used to be, you'd have to go through a trial and error of medications to see what
Yeah.
kind of worked for your body and what your
Yeah.
body could tolerate.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of people would have to go through different cocktails of medications to see what works for them.
Hmm.
And while you're doing that, if the medications aren't working for you, then that means that the HIV is not being checked. So
Hmm.
your quality of life is being affected in that sense.
Yeah.
But now these days they're able to look at your, I don't know exactly how this works, but they're essentially able to look at your DNA, and they're able to tell what strain of HIV you have and what medications are most effective and what will work for you and your genome, essentially.
Yeah.
So that trial and error has decreased,
Yeah.
which is
I,
great, which is amazing
oh,
for
yeah.
people living with HIV.
Well, and just the quality of the pills too. I remember taking three different pills. I mean, all at once, like twice a day. I had nightmares. I had night sweats. I had jaundice. It was bad on. It was hard on my liver. It made me nauseous. all of that is gone. All of
Yeah.
that doesn't exist anymore. Now it's one pill, one a day. And this was a question I was going to ask, like, what's next in AIDS? I
Well,
just, there's I've heard about these pills and a shot and everything. Do you know anything about that?
I do, yeah. It's super exciting that
Okay.
they have now in Canada we have injectable PrEP.
Mm.
So
Oh
it's
yeah.
you can get an injection. I think it's once every 2 months, I believe. Um, Called Cabenuva, I think, or I don't know if it's Cabenuva or Descovy. One of
Okay.
them is an HIV treatment, and one of them is PrEP, and I'm not sure which is which at the moment.
Okay.
Excuse me, maybe I can look that up really quick. But anyways, yeah, there are injections for PrEP and for HIV treatment. There'll be more coming, I'm sure, as they get popularized.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not it's not perfect yet. A lot of people complain about sores at the injection site, and so some people prefer to just keep taking the pills. And for me personally, I would love to be on some sort of injectable HIV treatment, so I didn't have to take a pill every day.
Yeah.
But my strain of HIV is it wouldn't work with this medication.
Oh,
So
really?
again, cool that they could tell that from without me
Yeah.
having to try it.
Wow.
But unfortunately, it means that I have to wait.
How do you know? How you know your strain?
Yeah, my doctor was. I asked my doctor if I could be on Cabenuva. Sorry, Cabenuva is the treatment for HIV,
Okay.
and he said that unfortunately, with my strain of HIV, it wouldn't work.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's
so I should ask my
fascinating
doctor.
to me that they're able to tell. Yeah, you could see if
Yeah.
you're eligible.
Hopefully my strain matches.
Hopefully, fingers
Hopefully, oh,
crossed.
fingers crossed. Well, I mean, like you said, I mean, a shot versus a pill every day would be, I mean, what a dream, you know?
For some people, yeah. For some people, the pill works better. But
Yeah.
the shot is nice because there's less medication in it, so there's less chance for you to reject it.
Mm.
Um, excuse me. So that usually means less side effects.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's nice to think of where treatment and PrEP are going.
Yeah.
If we can get to a shot, we went from a combination of pills at different times of the day to one pill at once a day, and now we have a shot once every 2 months. What's
Yeah.
next?
Like where is it going? Like a shot a year, you
A
know?
shot a year, a cure?
A cure?
Who knows? A cure would be amazing. It's just, it's one of those things where where you think, oh, but there's so much money in treating it. So are they really gonna, I don't know. I wonder
I
if a
know,
cure
I
is
know.
really on the horizon.
Of course, yeah,
It would
because
be
if they
really nice
cure
if it
it, then
was.
they won't make as much money, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But we've also heard talk of a vaccine, like a preventative vaccine. So I guess like a lifelong PrEP. So that would
Okay.
be something interesting as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have things coming.
Crazy. We've come so far.
We really
We
have.
have come so far in terms of medication. Have we come as far in attitudes?
I think that there's always going to be work to do when it comes to attitudes and treating everybody as human beings. Um, and unfortunately, stigma still exists. Unfortunately, these conversations aren't being had as often or as loudly as they should. And and even with mentions on Drag Race and in the public eye, there are still so many people who don't know what U equals U means, don't know what undetectable means, just see HIV as like no, I'm going to avoid that. Um, and that is so easy these days with the apps. Like if you're on Grinder and you're talking to a guy that tells you that he's HIV positive,
Yeah.
if you're uncomfortable with that, well, there's like 100 other guys behind him that you could talk to instead.
Yeah.
And so a
Yeah.
lot of people will just like, better, I'd rather be safe than sorry and just not interact with you.
Yeah.
So yeah. However, I will say though that things are changing in the positive. I mean, I get a lot less flack these days for being HIV positive on the apps. I get a lot less people just outright blocking me or saying that they're uncomfortable by it
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
ghosting me, this and that, those and that. I'm sure you know those stories.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that things are changing for the positive. I just, especially in the work that I'm in, I can see that there's a lot further to go.
Hmm. I find the apps more, what's the word, judgmental than people in person for some reason. Well, maybe because they can hide behind their screens and they can hide behind their,
100, that is the reason. Yeah.
yeah, they're not face to
Because
face with you, and
it's
yeah.
really easy to not see the person on your phone screen as a person. It
Hmm.
instead of you just see them as, this digital entity essentially, or the photo that they've shown you.
Yeah.
But no, that's actually a person back there, and they have emotions and experiences and and
Yeah.
feelings and stuff. So I think that that's important for a lot of people to remember and realize.
No, absolutely.
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Go.
Since it's not since we're not legally obligated to disclose, since we are both taking our medication and we're undetectable,
Yeah.
um do you, or
Disclose?
do you feel, yeah, or do you feel the need to?
I don't. I don't. No to both questions, because if they ask, yes, of course. Yeah, if somebody
Okay.
asks me, then yes,
Yep.
and they have asked me, and then they've made excuses and left, and that's fine. That's
Sure. Right.
that's your that means, to me, that means you don't understand, and I do not want to have sex with you anyway. So
100%.
I don't have any desire for you anymore because you're
Yeah.
uninformed. So, and that's
Yeah.
fine, and
Yeah.
I do not take it personally at all. Um, but no, no, I don't, because I'm doing my due diligence. I'm taking care of myself. Everything is fine. I know the score, and I know that I'm not putting anyone at risk. So the answer is no. Yeah. How
And
about,
listen, everybody that's listening,
yeah?
the reason that you're able to say no, that you're legally able to say no, is because you, like you said, you are taking care of yourself. You
Hmm.
know that you're not putting anybody in at any sort of unnecessary risk in terms of HIV.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I think that that's,
Well, saying no
you're
as in,
empowered to
wait,
make that
is that
choice.
confusing? I'm saying no to your question. Your question was, do I disclose? But I don't say anything because I don't feel the need to, because
That's what I'm saying.
there's no reason to. If they ask
You're
me,
empowered.
then I tell them, and then it's
Yeah,
up
yeah,
to
yeah.
them. That's on you,
But
like
you're
whatever.
empowered by the law to
Yes,
not have to, is what I'm
correct.
saying. You're
Right.
able to not do it because it's not legal to, because you're not putting anybody at risk.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, for me, I I do disclose, because when I was negative, I sort of, I guess I expected people to do that for me, so I in turn do that for them. And
Hmm.
it's like you said, I have it publicly on my profile. I work in sexual health. My status is very public, so I don't, don't think I could hide it at this point if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I try to, I use it as a tool to educate people if I can. Like if I have it on my Grinder profile, if you don't know what U equals U is, ask me. Um, so I hope to, open an eye or two with that kind of thing.
Sure.
And like you said, if somebody sees my status on my profile and doesn't want to have sex with me, well, I don't want to have sex with them either.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it worked out.
That's a buzzkill. Well, then walk
Yeah.
us through that. So, what does that look like for you? Because I think people that are listening, if they choose to disclose, um, for whatever reason, it's not always easy. Like, what are the words that you find, or how does it come up, or how? So maybe you can walk us through how you do it, and then it might help somebody who's listening.
Yeah, it's definitely, when I first was diagnosed, I started being sexual again. It empowered me and it made me feel good to be able to tell people, just so you know, if you're uncomfortable, like I said to you earlier, it is statistically safer to have sex with me without a condom than it is to have sex with somebody who says they're negative with a condom,
Hmm.
because that person that says they're negative doesn't actually know whether or not they're negative, likely,
Hmm.
unless they were tested, a week ago, they abstained, and you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
it's harder for them to 100% say what their status is.
Sure.
I 100% do know my status, so I'm in control of it, and I think that that's paramount. I think that that's huge.
So wait, is that what you would say to somebody that just before you're going to have sex
Sorry,
with them?
I would I have said
By
that to
this
so
point, they're
many.
like,
I really have said that to so many people. And if they were uncomfortable by it, then they're uncomfortable by it. But I was just trying to teach people this fact.
okay,
And you know what? There were some receptive people that
yeah.
were open to it, and yeah. So
So
you don't need to necessarily do that. You don't need to educate everybody. You don't need to
you don't need to be
educate
a
the
sexual health
children.
educator.
That's not on. Yeah, maybe I
Okay,
just
so
saw
what
that
would
as
an
my
average
calling early
person,
on.
what would an average person maybe say? And also, when would be a good time to bring it up? You
For
know?
me, I like to just kind of throw it in as like a what are you into sort of question. So when you're talking about that sort
Okay.
of sexual stuff,
Mm.
um, it can kind of come up organically there. Um, I think it's so different for everybody. Like
Yeah.
for me saying the like that it's safe to have sex with me, safer than for me than with somebody else, that was easy for me to just like spout out. I had it copied and
Yeah.
pasted on one of my notes apps and
Yeah.
on my phone.
Yeah.
So and it also kind of reminded me too that I am the safest type of person to have sex with
Yeah.
in terms of HIV.
Yeah. But let's find words for an average person.
Sure, an average person can say what I just said, that they are the safest kind of person to have sex with, and that
Okay.
there's science to back that up.
Okay.
You 100%, I 100% know my status. I know that it's safe, and I mean, if you've been open with somebody about your HIV status, then you're demonstrating to them that you are
Responsible.
responsible and that you are able to communicate about your own sexual health, and I think that that's important too.
Yeah. It shows a comfort level and it doesn't it shows that you're not scared by it and you're not, freaked out by it, so they shouldn't be. It's like you're at ease, so they should be at ease kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I also think if you are uncomfortable talking about it, and if you're uncomfortable having sex with people who might be uncomfortable by it, then you can choose to, as an HIV positive person, you can choose to only sleep with people who are on PrEP, because those people obviously know at least a thing or two about HIV if they're on
Mm-hmm.
PrEP.
Mm-hmm. It
Um,
feels like everyone's on
because
prep. I
I
mean,
think
not
most people
a
are, and I
lot of
do find it
people are.
surprising sometimes when people aren't.
Yeah.
But some people aren't, so you can't
Sure,
just
of
assume
course.
everybody is.
No. No.
But yeah, those people who are on PrEP obviously have had some sort of conversation with some sort of doctor about
Mm-hmm.
HIV, and so they're more likely to understand what undetectable is, and
Mm-hmm.
they're more likely to get it,
Yeah.
basically. So
Yeah.
I guess that could be a recommendation for the normal person who is not a sexual health educator.
Yeah.
Um, if you feel uncomfortable by it, then people on PrEP more likely get it.
Yeah. And people are happy to say they're on prep. I mean,
Oh, they love saying that, of
they love
course.
it's like a badge of honor,
It kind of is. It
it,
is,
it,
yeah.
it kind of well to me it's probably I don't know, I'm making an assumption, but I feel like it's an announcement that I'm negative, but I'm informed,
Yeah, exactly. And it also
right?
kind of is an announcement that like I fuck. Do you know what I mean?
Right, that's
Like
right. Yeah, that's true.
I've been to people's places for hookups, and they have like their prep bottles like on a display, all of their empty
Oh,
prep bottles.
oh,
Have you ever seen that?
nope,
No.
no,
Okay, well, I've seen it a
like
couple
trophies.
times, and yeah, like actually like they're proud of it. They're proud of all of the prep that they've taken and
Huh.
all of the HIV they've dodged.
Yeah. Pew, 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 pew.
Woo, woo, whoa, not this time.
I've never heard of that. That is
And I
hilarious.
kind of love it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
well,
think it's
why not?
great. Be
W-
proud.
Be proud for sure. We should all be proud because
You're protecting yourself, you're protecting the community. Good
that's
for
right.
you.
We're all doing our part, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree. I want people who are HIV positive to know that it's important for them to know themselves that they are taking care of their health, that they are healthy, and that they aren't able to pass it on. If other people don't understand that, that sucks, and it sucks for them because they're not having sex with you. It sucks for you too. Sometimes it can feel a little shitty,
Yeah.
but you should just know that you're okay. And the problem isn't you in that situation. The problem is the lack of education on them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, because it can feel like rejection, right?
oh, it can feel
So,
exactly like rejection, and often it is rejection, especially when you're just
yeah,
getting blocked outright or ignored, you
that's
know?
right. Yeah. I got
Yeah.
ghosted once hard and I was like, oh, so that was a terrible feeling.
Yeah, it's the worst. Like I've had times where you're hot and heavy in the chats, and like they're already in the shower on the way over, and then the topic of status comes up and they're gone.
Yeah.
And it's like but we just had that. We talked for an hour.
Yeah.
Like,
I
anyway, yeah,
know. And isn't it worth at least saying, oh, but they don't even have the balls to say, oh, listen, I'm uncomfortable
that's what
with
I mean.
this. Like, just tell me that
And this
I'm
is
uncomfortable with this. I can't do
treat me
that.
like a person. Treat me like a person. I'm over here engaging with you, and then you just disappear. Like that sucks. Like
Yeah.
it's just rude.
Yeah. We can do better.
Yeah, feel
Right.
what you want to feel about your own sexual health, but you don't need to treat me badly because of mine.
That's right. Aaron, thank you so much for taking the time today to come on Queerly Us and sharing your knowledge and your expertise. We can do
Thanks
it
for
again,
having
yeah?
me. Yeah, for sure. I'm happy that you reached out, and I would always be happy to come back.
Thank you. Okay, I'll see you guys on the next episode of Queerly Us.